Not going to be explaining topics that I haven't researched or know anything about. Do not expect accurate information. Let's get started. Okay, so we're starting with the easiest topic that I could imagine. Rocket science. So, I guess we get straight into it. There are a couple variables that I imagine, right? So, the first thing is rocket fuel, right? You need to figure out something that can burn, that can sustain a certain temperature over time, whilst not catching everything else on fire or melting the steel. But you also want something that I don't know if it's producing the right amount of heat or whatever, and you want it to not burn as quickly because you want to have a decent amount of fuel. You don't want it to be too expensive. So that's the first variable is fuel, and then the second variable would be again that metal, because you want something that's light, and you want something that can resist the flames and stuff. Now this is kind of where you get multiple metals, because you'll probably make most of the rocket will be made out of a flammable, or not flammable, but less durable material. And as close you get to the actual rocket itself, the actual propulsion device, the closer you get to that, the higher the melting point of the metal should be, because it's going to have more contact with heat. So I think that's the main thing. Also the weight. I don't know if I discussed this with the thruster itself before, but the weight has to be less than the propulsion, and it has to the rocket science, the real scientists have to figure out the balance of making a rocket that can work and produce a lot of thrust while still being light enough to be lifted. And then that's why I think later in the rocket phases, because rockets have multiple phases, it drops off certain parts of it to be lighter, and it'll probably the bottom part carries part fuel, next part carries part fuel, and so once it depletes the fuel source there, drops that part, and then its weight is less, and then the thruster power, I don't think the thruster power is lessened by a lot, because each layer has a new thruster under it, a fresh thruster, and so you boost off, and then that's how you get out. And once you're out in space, there's no gravity, so you don't need that much propulsion. It's fully just fighting gravity for that first part, really getting out of there. And then once you're out, you can do a little thrust and then glide your way at a real slow speed. And then returning's not easy, because you still have to survive the landing somehow. But it's easy to get back, because you only need there's a little bit of calculations into it. Because you need to figure out a way to rotate the rocket ship and then come back to Earth. And then you've got to use thrusters to slow yourself from falling, or rotate yourself as well from when you're falling, so that you land properly. Which is why a lot of the crash sites, when they come back, they're in the water, because the water is just an easier part to land in. I think the ship can float like a boat, like a ship, and then you can be retrieved from there. I think that's the majority of the rocket science. The rest of it's kind of figuring out how to make something so precisely hot. I think that's the majority of it, right? Getting that thruster to get so hot and produce enough force to lift up this massive metal thing, and still have the passengers in the state that isn't cold or isn't hot, really hot. And then you've also got to accommodate them. You got to build a ship that has heating, because space is cold, and you got to be able to have food pouches and stuff like that. And I think the way they do that is obviously two different ships. They'll build the rocket propulsion system below, and then the accommodation system at the top. Yeah, that sounds accurate. That sounds good. I think this is coming to the end.